This wooden board has a set of brass rods that swing out from the sides, and there's a scratched circular design at the top. It looks handmade but solidly built, and my family originally picked it up at a yard sale years ago. Does anyone know what it is? What you found is a shove halfpenny board, a traditional pub game that has been played in Britain for centuries. The wooden surface is divided into narrow scoring zones called beds, marked off by brass strips. The rules are simple but require skill. Each player pushes 5 coins from the lower edge of the board during a turn. Using the palm of the hand, the coin is slid forward, and it only scores if it comes to rest completely between 2 brass lines without touching them. Every clean shot counts as a point, and the goal is to collect 3 points in each of the 9 beds. The game goes back hundreds of years and became a staple pastime in pubs across Britain during the 18th and 19th centuries. Players originally used real halfpennies, pronounced haypennies, which gave the game its name. Over time, purpose-made tokens replaced coins, but the style of the board has hardly changed. I'm trying to figure out what this old wooden machine is before I get rid of it. It has a hand crank that turns 4 paddles inside, and the frame is marked N. Stearns, Bernardston, Massachusetts. Does anyone know what this was used for? What you have is an antique fanning mill, a grain cleaning machine that farmers once used to separate grain from chaff, straw, and weed seeds after threshing. Grain was poured into the top hopper, and a sliding gate controlled how it fed through. Turning the hand crank powered a fan and a set of screens inside the cabinet. As the grain moved across the screens, oversized material went out one way, smaller debris dropped another, and the clean kernels fell through to the chute. The airflow carried away the lighter chaff. With interchangeable screens and adjustable airflow, these machines could handle wheat, oats, corn, beans, and more. Fanning mills like this were widespread on American farms in the 19th and early 20th centuries. My grandfather gave me these old brass lamps, and I always thought they might be for boats. They have glass lenses and hinged covers, and they look like they were built to be carried or mounted. These are carbide acetylene lamps. They generate acetylene gas when water drips onto calcium carbide. That gas burns at a small nozzle behind the lens and produces a bright, focused light. They were used to light buildings, serve as lighthouse beacons, and as early headlights on motor cars and bicycles. Portable versions, worn on a hat or carried by hand, were widely used in mining in the early 20th century, and some cavers and hunters still use them today. I came across this wooden game with numbered tiles that flip down and a pair of dice. Does anyone know what this game is called or how it's played? What you have is the game Shut the Box, sometimes called Ackpot or Trick Track. It's a dice game for 1 or more players, usually 2 to 4, and it can be played either for stakes or simply for fun. In the traditional version, the box has numbered tiles from 1 through 9 that flip down as the game progresses. Some versions include 10 or 12 tiles, and the game can also be played with just 2 dice, a pen, and paper. The origin of the game is uncertain. Some believe it began in 12th century Normandy, while others link it to the Channel Islands in the mid-20th century, credited to a man known as Chalky Towbridge. Found in my parents' bathroom closet, a small clear plastic cylinder with a hex-shaped cap. Inside there's a white mechanism with a rotating wheel marked R, and at the bottom is a cluster of black bristles. Does anyone know what this is used for? What you found is a contact lens cleaning case that works with a hydrogen peroxide solution. The lenses are placed in the small L and R holders, and the container is filled to the line with 3% peroxide to clean and disinfect them. At the bottom is a neutralizing catalyst. Once the case is closed, the peroxide begins to bubble and gradually converts into a harmless saline solution, while the vented cap releases oxygen. The lenses must stay in the case until the solution is fully neutralized, which usually takes about 6 hours depending on the brand. After that, the lenses are safe to wear, and some people rinse them with sterile saline before putting them in. Found this heavy clip with an orange rubber tip in my car after service. Does anyone know what it is? What you have is an ice fishing depth finder weight. The spring clip grabs onto your hook, and the heavy tip drops the rig straight to the bottom. Clip it on, lower until it touches bottom, mark the depth on your line with a small piece of string, or a stop, reel up, remove the weight, set your bait at that mark, and start fishing. My great aunt found this metal spinning top in her garden in the United Kingdom. It has letters and numbers on its sides. Does anyone know what it is or what it was used for? What you've got there is actually called a put and take top. It's basically an old gambling toy, over 100 years old. The story goes that soldiers in the trenches during World War I came up with the game. Here's how it works. The top has markings like P1, P2, P3, that means put 1, 2, or 3 coins into the pot. Then there's T1, T2, T3, those mean take 1, 2, or 3 out of the pot. And if you land on TA, that's take all, and you get the whole thing. Back then, everybody would throw in a coin, or in the trenches, a cigarette to start. Then they'd take turns spinning the top and just follow whatever it landed on. The game kept going until someone hit take all and scooped up the pot. A customer at my bar showed me this picture and asked if I could help identify it. It looks like a wooden device with several long slats attached to a frame, but I can't figure out what it is. What you're looking at is an antique folding clothes dryer, a wooden rack with cast iron hardware, attributed to Frank Hopkins and Company. It was used for laundry and, in some homes, for drying herbs. The arms swing out to form rails for hanging items and fold flat for storage. Pieces like this were made and sold in the United States from the late 19th into the early 20th century, roughly the 1870s through the 1910s, and they remained in household use into the mid-20th century. I came across this pyramidal wooden structure with a pierced metal ball on top in a local antique shop. The owner said it was found in a barn in Pennsylvania, and it's one of an identical pair. At first I thought it might be a horse hitch, but I'm really not sure. Does anyone know what this is? What you're looking at is a jack screw, a lifting device driven by a lead screw. Turning the screw raises or lowers the head to support or lift a heavy load. Tools like this were used by farmers and builders to shore timbers, level floors and move machinery, and by mechanics under wagons and early cars. In the United States, screw jacks were standard by the late 19th century and saw wide use through the early to mid-20th century. This old piece of equipment was found on a former cattle ranch in Texas from the 1940s. The flat top is about 3 by 4 feet and 2 feet off the ground, and it has no electrical parts. Does anyone know what this might have been used for? What you're looking at is an old mechanical furnace fan made by Champion Forge in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's part of the Champion blower line, first invented by Henry Kuiper when he was 17. The fan used a hand crank to force air into a forge or furnace, raising the temperature for metalworking or heating. These blowers were built in the late 19th and early 20th centuries and became a standard tool for blacksmiths and workshops across the United States. I found this set of 9 wooden balls, 4 black, 4 brown, and 1 smaller brown ball, stored in a metal carrying case. Any ideas? What you have is a bocce set, 8 larger wooden balls and a smaller target ball called the Polino. Play begins with a toss of the Polino. Players then take turns rolling their balls, trying to finish closest to the target. Knocking an opponent's ball away is allowed. After all balls are thrown, only the side with the closest ball scores, earning 1 point for each of its balls that lie closer than the opponent's nearest. Games typically go to 12 or 15 points. Bocce traces its roots to games of ancient Rome and spread across Europe with the Empire. The modern Italian form took shape in the 19th century, and Italian immigrants brought it to the United States, Argentina, and Australia. In the crawl space of my 1905 home, I found this black box with wires attached. It's about 5 inches long and mounted on the brick. Does anyone know what it is? What you found is a Jefferson Little Jeff Universal Toy Transformer from the 1920s. It powered toy trains, providing 6 selectable output voltages, roughly 5.5 to 13 volts in 1.5 volt steps. The front lever sets the voltage so a miniature locomotive can start and run at different speeds. This brass and iron piece has been by our fireplace for generations. It's shaped like a small tube mounted on a swivel stand with claw-shaped feet. Does anyone know what it was used for? What you found is a goffering iron, sometimes called an Italian or tally iron. These tools were widely used in the 18th and 19th centuries when fashion demanded neatly pressed ruffles, lace, and pleated ribbons. The design is simple but clever. A hollow iron tube fixed on a decorative stand, typically with claw-shaped feet like yours. To use it, a separate solid metal rod was heated in the fireplace until it glowed red. That hot rod was then slipped inside the tube, turning it into a heated cylinder. Starched fabric could be drawn across or wrapped around the tube, which set it into crisp pleats and waves. Goffering irons first appeared in Europe during the late 16th century to shape elaborate Elizabethan ruffs, and they remained popular well into the 17th century, the Victorian period, when frilled cuffs, collars, and lace trims were in high demand. I found this wooden figurine tucked away in a closet when I moved into a rented house a couple of years ago. It looks hand-carved, and my landlady is from India, though I'm not sure if it belongs to her. Does anyone know what this figure represents? This is a Maripachi doll, also called a Maripachi Bomai, a traditional South Indian wooden festival doll. These figures are carved from red sandalwood, silk cottonwood, or red wood, and are displayed during the Golu festival as part of Navaratri, known as Dasara. They are typically made in pairs, a male and a female, that children dress and arrange for the Golu or Bomai Kolu display. In Tirupati, carvers produce ornamented versions representing Venkateshwara and his consort. They are also made in Kondapalli as Rajarani dolls, meaning king and queen, and they are considered a staple of Golu displays. A friend brought this wooden toy back from New Zealand, but I can't figure out what it is. It came with a string and was sold as a children's toy. Does anyone know what this is? What you have is a wooden pataka ta, a Maori whip top from New Zealand. It's a double-pointed spinning top used with a taw, a whip made from strips of harakeke flax attached to a wooden handle. To use it, wind the whip around the top and pull sharply to start it spinning. Once it's turning, tap it lightly with the whip to keep it going. A colleague of mine who's a woodcarver recently got this tool, but none of us can figure out what it's for. Does anyone know what this tool is used for? This small tool is for adjusting earring clasps and clip-on earrings. Its hooked jaws are shaped to catch the tiny tab or spring on a clip, so you can nudge it tighter or looser without using your fingernails. Jewelers use tools like this to make quick comfort adjustments on paddleback and leverback clips, or to straighten a small latch that's gone out of shape. I came across this brass object with mesh-like holes at the tip. The end spins, and the inside is spring-loaded, and looks like it might be designed to hold something. Does anyone know what it is? What you have is a moxibustion device, a traditional therapy that began in China and later spread to Japan. In this treatment, dried herbs, commonly Chinese mugwort, are ignited to generate heat that is applied to specific points on the body to warm them. This brass tool holds the burning herb inside the perforated head. The holes allow heat and smoke to escape, while the spring-loaded insert keeps the material in place. The rounded tip can also be used to gently press or massage the skin as the warmth is applied. I found this metal object that has both a clock and a lock mechanism. It comes with keys and a pouch with a metal clasp. Does anyone know exactly what this was used for? What you have is a bookmaker's betting bag clock. Before a race or other contest, wagers written on slips were dropped into a pouch that was attached to this clock and lock. Once the pouch was closed, the clock started running and showed the time the bets were placed. The bookmaker didn't need to be present, only he had the key so a runner could carry the sealed pouch to him. The time display made it difficult to cheat by backdating or altering a bet. I found this small leather-covered square metal box, about 1.5 inches across, with a hinged lid marked Dipose. Inside there seems to be a small well or chamber. Does anyone know what this was used for? What you found is a pocket travel inkwell. The leather-covered case snaps shut over a small inkwell, so liquid ink could be carried without spilling. You'd pop it open, dip a pen, close it, and tuck it back into a coat or writing kit. Portable inkwells date to the 18th century, but they became truly popular in the Victorian era as rail travel and letter writing took off. The mark Dipose is French for registered design, a clue that yours was made for the French or Belgian market. Compact snuffbox-style pieces like this were produced in France, Britain, and Germany from the late 19th into the early 20th century, roughly the 1880s to the 1910s. and were carried by travelers, officers, clerks, and journalists with dip pens. I found this heavy tool at a second-hand store. It has a wooden handle and a gold-colored metal head shaped like a flower. The bottom is flat, the top is rounded with a distinct textured pattern, and there's a hole in the center. Does anyone know what this is? What you found is a vintage millinery flower tool. Milliners heated the brass head, pressed silk or velvet against a padded surface, and stamped in veins to shape realistic petals for women's hats. The center hole guided the stem wire and helped align the petal layers during assembly. These tools appeared in Paris and London workshops in the late 19th century, and soon spread to New York and other fashion centers in the early 20th century. Complete sets included paired molds and a small spirit lamp or gas heater to warm the irons. Fabric flower making became a hallmark of Victorian and Edwardian millinery, stayed popular into the 1920s and 1930s, and gradually faded after the 1950s as daily hat-wearing declined. I found this flat, L-shaped steel object with engraved names and measurements. It's about 3.5 by 2 inches and just 1/8 of an inch thick. One side has markings like a scale. Could this be some kind of old machinist's tool? What you found is a machinist's drill point gauge, sometimes called a drill sharpening gauge. These tools were used to check the accuracy of a freshly sharpened drill bit, especially in military or professional machine shops. The angled edge and etched markings help measure the lip length and the drill point angle, ensuring that both sides are symmetrical. This is crucial for proper drilling and to avoid wobbling or uneven wear. The personal engravings, including the name, training unit, and a reference to North Dakota, suggest it likely belonged to a United States Navy machinist in training, probably in the late 1950s. Tools like this were standard issue for Navy technical personnel and would have been a key part of their equipment, both in training and during active service. What is this small metal box with a hinged lid and side loops? It has ornate floral engravings and a large Star of David on the front. Could it be for carrying religious items, or was it used for something else? What you found is a decorative gunpowder or ammunition flask, most likely from the Ottoman Empire or North Africa, places such as Morocco or Turkey. These flasks were traditionally used to hold gunpowder for muzzle-loading firearms and were typically worn on a cord which would pass through the side loops. The hinged lid made it easy to access the powder quickly when reloading a weapon. The intricate floral patterns and repoussé metalwork are characteristic of Islamic and Ottoman craftsmanship. However, the prominent Star of David on the front suggests that this particular piece was made for a Jewish owner, possibly someone from a Sephardic or Mizrahi community that lived within Ottoman territories. I found this charming wooden set in an antique store in France. It includes 6 small bowls, 6 skewers, and a holder. What is it used for? What you found is a fondue appetizer set, made for serving small bites alongside cheese or chocolate fondue. The individual wooden bowls are used to hold dipping sauces or to catch any drips from skewered items like bread, fruit, or vegetables. The small forks are used to spear these items and dip them into a shared fondue pot. Sets like this were especially popular during the mid-20th century, particularly in the 1960s and 1970s, when fondue became a fashionable centerpiece for entertaining at home. Dear viewers, if you enjoy our videos, please subscribe to the channel and give this one a thumbs up. It influences the YouTube algorithm and the video gets promoted more effectively. Thank you. I inherited these 2 knife-shaped objects from my family, and since my ancestors lived in China, I'm wondering if they have any historical or cultural significance. What you have are replicas of ancient Chinese knife money, a form of early currency used during the Zhou dynasty, approximately between 600 and 200 BC. These bronze knife-shaped objects were issued by various city-states and kingdoms in what is now northern China. They were both a means of trade and a symbol of local authority or economic connection. The distinctive design features a flat, curved blade with a loop at the top, making them easy to carry or string together. Authentic pieces frequently bear inscriptions identifying the issuing region or ruler, though these markings can be difficult to read due to age and corrosion. According to historical accounts, knife money may have originated when soldiers traded their knives for goods, eventually leading to its adoption as a standardized currency. Another theory suggests that local rulers accepted knives in place of coins for paying fines or taxes. While genuine examples are prized by collectors, reproductions are widely available due to the popularity of these artifacts. Judging by the casting marks and surface details in your photos, your pieces are likely modern replicas or commemorative versions rather than original antiques. I found this unusual item at my grandfather's place. It looks like a small knife embedded into a 1908 Indian head penny. Does anyone know what it is? What you found is a handcrafted novelty known as a micro penny knife, made from a 1908 Indian head cent. These miniature knives are created by carefully cutting the blade shape out of the coin using a jeweler's saw. Tiny handle scales, usually made from mother of pearl or bone, are then added, just like on a full-size knife. Since each one is individually crafted, no two are exactly alike. Though not functional as actual knives, they're highly collectible among both coin and knife enthusiasts and represent a unique combination of metalwork, precision cutting, and artistry. I found this small decorative item that looks like it might be made of silver. It's domed with an engraved floral pattern, and the number 980 is stamped on the bottom. I can't seem to open it, but there's a seam around the base and a small slit underneath. Could it be something makeup related, or is it used for something else? What you found appears to be a small incense burner, likely intended for burning incense tablets or cones. The floral engravings on the dome and the 980 stamp on the base suggest it's crafted from high-grade silver, possibly originating from Asia or the Middle East, where such decorative containers are commonly used in traditional rituals and home settings. The visible seam and slit at the base indicate that the top portion was designed to separate, although it may now be stuck due to age or oxidation. Inside, there would typically be a compartment for placing the incense. Once lit, the aromatic smoke would escape through small openings in the lid or around the edges, gently filling the space with fragrance. These types of burners were both decorative and practical, and were often given as gifts or passed down through families. I found these glass vials buried near the site of an old hotel that was torn down before 1875 in Yankton, South Dakota. Inside each one is a small golden capsule with a number on a slip of paper. Does anyone know what they were used for? What you found is a 19th century lottery capsule, an early sealed draw device used for gambling or promotional events. These glass vials held golden capsules with a slip of paper inside, typically showing a number linked to a prize. To reveal the result, the vial had to be physically broken open, which helped ensure fairness and prevented tampering. This style of drawing was widely used in lotteries and raffles, tied to traveling shows, saloons, and fundraising events throughout the mid to late 1800s. What is this silver box with the monogram AWS? The bottom is marked crescent with a lion, moon, and bird, along with the number 35N. What was it used for? What you have is a silver-plated cigar or cigarette box, likely made by the Crescent Silverware Manufacturing Company. Established in 1922 in Port Jervis, New York, Crescent became known for producing silver-plated hollowware and accessories with detailed decorative finishes. The markings on the base, featuring a lion, crescent moon, and bird, are traditional hallmarks used by Crescent to indicate silver-plated construction. The interior is lined with wood, which is typical for boxes intended to hold cigars or cigarettes, as it helps maintain humidity and preserve the tobacco's aroma. The engraved monogram AWS on the lid indicates that it was a personalized piece, probably given as a gift or custom ordered for someone with those initials. The rectangular form and hinged lid reflect a popular design style from the mid-20th century, a time when such smoking accessories were a refined part of personal or office decor. What is the purpose of these small circular shelves mounted under the corners of this table? My mom saw them at a bar in the Midwest and was curious. What you found is a vintage saloon-style game table, and those small round platforms attached underneath each corner are called drink shelves or mug holders. These were a familiar feature on tavern tables from the late 19th to early 20th century, especially in the American Midwest. They were designed to give players a convenient spot to rest their drink, typically a mug of beer, without cluttering the main tabletop, which was reserved for playing cards, dominoes, or other bar games. This kept the playing surface clean and dry, which was especially important when handling paper money or score sheets. I found this heavy metal object that looks like a pen. It's about 6 inches long, marked Orlim, France, and has a battery inside. The tip is made of a hard, stone-like material and the decorative cap screws on. Any idea what it was used for? What you found is an electric nail polisher made by Orlim in France, most likely from the 1960s. This handheld device was designed to smooth and shine fingernails using a ceramic tip that vibrates or rotates, powered by a small battery. I found this round, heavy object years ago near a forest in western Germany. It feels heavier than wood but lighter than metal and has a raised design of a leaf on one side, a pattern on the other, and some symbols on the edge. Does anyone know what it is? What you found appears to be a ceramic not-geld coin, locally issued token money produced in Germany during the early 20th century, especially in the 1920s. Not-geld, meaning emergency money, was used during times of economic instability when official currency was in short supply. By the 1920s, however, many towns began issuing not-geld in decorative forms, frequently made from unconventional materials such as porcelain, leather, or pressed clay. The piece in your photos seems to be made from Butger stoneware, a dense, dark ceramic first developed in Meissen in the early 1700s. The raised chestnut leaf design and the carved edge markings suggest it was a commemorative or ornamental issue, likely reflecting local pride or cultural identity. These tokens weren't intended for general circulation, but rather were collected, traded, and sometimes accepted in local shops. Today, they are valued as collectibles, especially when well-preserved and linked to a specific town or minting series. I found this small, rusted metal part in my backyard. It sort of looks like tiny earmuffs, but it's clearly some kind of old mechanical piece. Any idea what it was originally used for? What you found is a brass carburetor float from an old internal combustion engine. This kind of float was housed inside the carburetor's float chamber and served to regulate the fuel level. As fuel filled the chamber, the float would rise and eventually close a needle valve, shutting off the flow once the fuel reached the correct height. These floats were widely used in cars, tractors, and other gasoline-powered equipment from the early to mid-20th century. Their design helped keep fuel pressure steady and ensured the engine ran smoothly. I found this gold-tone necklace with a spinning pendant at a thrift store. One side has a carved red stone, and the other features a raised monogram or symbol. What was this used for, and does the design have any special meaning? What you found is a vintage spinner pendant necklace, likely made by Tara or Goldette, two American costume jewelry brands known for their elaborate Victorian-inspired designs that were popular in the mid-20th century. The pendant rotates on a horizontal axis and features two decorative sides, one with a faux carved stone, typically made from molded glass or resin to mimic jade or carnelian, and the other with a raised ornamental monogram or flourish. These pieces were designed to create a romantic or antique aesthetic, rather than to carry a specific meaning or function. Spinner pendants like this were widespread during the 1950s to 1970s, and were frequently featured on lariat-style necklaces or long, dramatic chains. I picked this up at a swap meet. It's a spring-loaded aluminum tool about 7 inches long. Any idea what it was used for? What you found is a lightweight pot or pan gripper, also known as a detachable camp pot handle. These tools were particularly common in military mess kits, camping cookware, and compact kitchen sets, starting around the mid-20th century. The spring-loaded jaws are designed to securely grip the lip or rim of a metal pot or pan, allowing you to lift or move it without burning your hands. This type of handle was preferred because it could be used with multiple pieces of cookware, eliminating the need for each pot or pan to have a permanent handle. I recently came across this photo from my childhood and vaguely remembered this device. I must have been around 2 or 3 years old at the time. It looks like a small computer, and I seem to recall there being something attached to the left side of the screen. Does anyone know what this was? What you remember is the VTL Computron, an early electronic educational toy released around 1980. Manufactured in Hong Kong and sold primarily through Sears catalogs, the Computron was designed to introduce children to basic logic, letters and numbers through simple games like hangman and matching puzzles. Unlike later educational computers, it didn't support programming languages like BASIC. Instead, it relied on built-in games that used the integrated keypad and display. Its distinctive design with round, color-coded buttons and a reflective screen made it stand out from other toys of the time. Some versions included a removable cartridge or a speaker unit on the left side of the screen, which may be what you're remembering. I found this 5-inch brass tool while going through some old boxes in a storage closet. It unscrews into 3 pieces, feels heavy, and seems really well made. At first I thought it might be some kind of gavel, but I'm not sure. Any ideas what it's used for? What you found is a makuganuki, a traditional tool used to remove the bamboo pegs called makugi that hold the handle of a Japanese sword in place. These pegs pass through the wooden handle and the tang of the blade to secure the sword's construction. The tool is typically made of metal, usually brass or steel, and comes apart into multiple pieces. A punch for pushing out the peg, a weight to assist with light tapping, and a grip for handling. This kind of tool is essential for sword maintenance and is appreciated by collectors and practitioners of Japanese sword arts. We found this small wooden wall display in a charity shop. It's about 12 inches tall and has narrow shelves with little circular indentations. It almost looks like a spice rack, but the spacing is too tight, and the round recesses are too small for jars. Any idea what this was originally made to hold? What you found is a wall-mounted display rack originally designed to hold collectible porcelain thimbles. The small circular indentations on each shelf are meant to keep the thimbles securely in place, preventing them from tipping or sliding. This particular style of rack was widely used in the late 20th century, especially for curated sets like the Garden Birds, bone china thimbles issued by Franklin Mint in 1979. Each thimble in that set featured a different garden bird illustration by artist Peter Barrett, trimmed in 24-karat gold. These thimbles were considered limited edition collectibles, and racks like this one were made specifically to showcase them. Dear viewers, if you enjoy our videos, please subscribe to the channel and give this one a thumbs up. It influences the YouTube algorithm and the video gets promoted more effectively. Thank you. I found all of these heavy metal parts stored together in a cardboard box in a garage. Some pieces look like hooks or pulleys, but I'm not sure what they were used for. Could they be parts from some kind of farm equipment? What you found appears to be a collection of vintage hay trolley parts likely used in a barn or on a hay wagon. These heavy-duty cast metal components were part of a pulley system designed to lift and move bales of hay, usually along a track mounted to the rafters of a barn or the frame of a wagon. The larger centerpiece with wheels is a hay carrier which would run along a rail and support the weight of a hay bale using a hook or sling. The individual hooks and curved brackets were used to guide or support different parts of the system. These components were built to last, which is why they're still intact today. I found this metal object in an old trash dumping spot in the woods. It's about 1 foot by 1 foot and has 5 spring-loaded slots and what look like small pieces of glass. Any idea what this is? What you found appears to be the remains of a vintage toaster, likely from the early to mid-20th century. This type of toaster used spring-loaded wire frames to hold slices of bread upright next to heated elements. Instead of automatically flipping or popping the bread, the user would manually flip the bread or the frame to toast the other side. Some models featured cleverly designed wire holders that allowed you to rotate the bread without touching it directly. While the heating coils and outer housing are either missing or have rusted away, the remaining metal frame and spring-loaded arms still reveal the basic mechanics of these early toasters. I'm house-sitting for a friend and found this unusual item in their laundry room. It looks like a cloth bag suspended in a wooden frame. At first I thought it might be something for laundry or fragrance, but The wire at the top doesn't move and it doesn't really close. There are two of them and both are just sitting on the counter. Any idea what this is? What you found is a traditional Costa Rican coffee maker, commonly known as a corredor. The cloth bag, called a bolsita, is used as a reusable coffee filter. Ground coffee is placed into the bag and hot water is poured over it, allowing brewed coffee to drip into a cup or carafe below. The wooden stand holds the bolsita in place during the brewing process. After use, the cloth filter is usually rinsed and left to dry. Since oils from the coffee can build up over time, it's customary to clean the bolsita now and then with salt to remove any residue. Seeing them in the laundry room probably means your friend had just washed and set them out to dry. I found this rusty metal tool buried in the backyard of a 1940s house in Southwest Virginia. It's about 6 inches long and looks like some kind of clamp or puller. Any idea what this might have been used for? What you found is a battery terminal puller, a specialized tool used to remove corroded battery cable clamps from car battery posts. When corrosion builds up, the terminal can get stuck on the post, making it difficult to remove by hand. To use the tool, you position the jaws around the battery terminal, and as you tighten the center screw, it presses against the battery post. This action gradually lifts the terminal off without damaging the post or the cable. Mechanically, it works much like a small gear or bearing puller, and it was a common item in automotive toolkits throughout the mid-20th century. I found this hand-carved wooden staff at the bottom of a creek in South Jersey. It has a ring-shaped top and what looks like a carved human face near the upper section. Does anyone know what this might be? What you found appears to be a hand-carved ceremonial or decorative staff, likely influenced by African folk art. The looped top and carved human face suggest that it may have been intended either as a symbolic object or as a walking staff with cultural significance. While it's difficult to determine its exact origin or age without further analysis, its design resembles staffs used in parts of West and Central Africa for traditional ceremonies or as symbols of status. I discovered this tiny circuit board hidden inside my tissue box at work. It has a battery, a speaker, an on-off switch, and a button that makes it beep when pressed. For the past day, I'd been hearing random beeping sounds, and finally tracked them down to this device. I don't see any storage ports or antenna, so I don't think it's a listening device. What you found is a novelty prank device called the Annoyatron, or something very similar like the annoying PCB. These tiny battery-powered boards are designed to emit random beeps, screeches, or cricket sounds at irregular intervals, usually every few minutes, just to confuse and irritate people nearby. The sound is short and difficult to pinpoint, which makes it ideal for practical jokes in offices or classrooms. There's no recording function, wireless capability, or data storage on the device, so it's not a surveillance tool. It's purely designed for harmless mischief. I found this elegant wooden box with decorative brass handles and unusual cutouts on top. It was sitting on a side table in a historic home built in the early 1900s. It stands about 16 inches tall and 12 inches wide. Any idea what this beautifully crafted item might have been used for? What you found is a knife urn, a decorative wooden container designed to hold silver flatware, most notably knives. These pieces were especially popular in England during the late 18th and early 19th centuries, and were typically part of a larger dining room furniture set. Your example, with its scalloped edges, fine inlay work, and rich wood grain, likely dates to around 1800 and is English in origin. Knife urns were made in pairs and usually placed symmetrically on either side of a sideboard or serving table. Their primary purpose was to store cutlery in a way that was both practical and elegant. The interior featured carefully shaped slots to hold individual utensils upright and separated. While many urns had a rounded, vase-like form, others, like yours, were designed as upright cabinets with hinged lids and locking mechanisms to keep valuable silver secure. The intricate craftsmanship and use of materials like mahogany and satinwood reflected the social status of the household. I came across this solid glass item in an old cabinet. It has several tapered holes that go all the way through and a slight yellowish tint to the glass. Any idea what this might have been used for? What you found is a flower frog, used to hold flower stems in place inside a vase. Flower frogs were especially popular in the early 20th century, before floral foam became widely available. The holes allow stems to be inserted and arranged securely, making it easier to create structured and elegant floral displays. Yours appears to be made of clear glass with a slight amber tint, which can help determine when it was made. Before 1914, glassmakers used manganese to remove the natural color from glass, but it would eventually turn purple when exposed to ultraviolet light. Around the time of World War I, they began using selenium instead, which gave the glass a yellow or amber hue under ultraviolet light exposure. This method remained common until around 1941, when selenium was redirected for military use. Based on that, your flower frog was likely produced sometime between 1915 and 1941. I inherited this small carved wooden piece from my father, who told me he found it buried in the mud near his childhood home in Jacarepaguá, a suburb of Rio de Janeiro, sometime in the 1930s. It has a Hebrew inscription on the back and what looks like a building carved on the front. Could anyone help identify what this might be? What you have is likely a carved wooden souvenir from Jerusalem, probably made in the early 20th century. The Hebrew inscription on the back reads Yerushalem, a biblical form of the name Jerusalem. These souvenirs were commonly made and sold to pilgrims and travelers as mementos from the Holy Land. The carved image on the front appears to represent the Tiferet Yisrael Synagogue, a well-known landmark in Jerusalem's Jewish quarter, before it was destroyed in 1948 during the Arab-Israeli conflict. This large wooden structure was spotted in a storage locker filled with musical instruments and art supplies. It looks like some kind of equipment, but I'm not sure what it's used for. Any idea what this might be? What you found is a harness and treadle loom, a type of floor loom used for weaving fabric by hand. The foot pedals, known as treadles, control the movement of harnesses that lift and lower the warp threads. This creates a space for the weft thread to pass through, allowing the fabric to form row by row. Although it's difficult to identify the exact model from the photo, the structure resembles looms made by companies like Macumber or Harrisville Designs. These looms have been widely used by fiber artists, weavers, and hobbyists for decades. The wooden frame, cords, and multiple shafts all suggest that this is a fully functional weaving tool, intended for serious textile work. A friend picked up this small metal item, just about an inch long, at a charity shop in Greece. It seems to be made of lightweight, hollow steel and has an orange and brown stone on one end that feels a bit fragile. There are no markings anywhere, and the metal looks slightly tarnished. What you found is a piercing bar, most likely used as body jewelry. It's probably made from surgical steel, which is lightweight, hollow, and resistant to corrosion, making it ideal for piercings. The decorative end, featuring a semi-translucent orange and brown stone, adds a touch of style, while the silver ball on the opposite end likely unscrews to allow for easy insertion or removal. I found this carved wooden object while going through my grandfather's things. It's about the size of a small baton and has decorative grooves carved into one end. Does anyone know what this might have been used for? What you found is a wooden billy club or truncheon, likely handcrafted and possibly used as a personal defense item. These short, weighted sticks were regularly carried by police officers in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, but handmade or ornamental versions were also kept in homes, particularly in rural areas for protection or emergencies. The turned grooves along the shaft provide a more secure grip, while the flared end helps prevent it from slipping out of the hand during use. I picked this up at a thrift store. The yellow spoke wheel spins and it's really fascinating to watch. It feels like it might have some kind of purpose, but I'm not sure what it is. It's made of metal or some kind of alloy. Does anyone know what this might be? What you found is a gyroscope toy, a classic educational device used to demonstrate the principles of angular momentum and rotational stability. To operate it, you thread a string through the hole in the central axle, wind it up and give it a sharp pull. The spinning motion causes the wheel to maintain its orientation, allowing it to balance on a narrow point like the edge of a glass or the tip of a pencil. Gyroscopes aren't just toys, they've played a significant role in navigation and aerospace engineering. Real gyroscopes are used in aircraft, submarines, and spacecraft to maintain orientation without relying on GPS or external reference points. The International Space Station, for example, uses large gyroscopes to help control its position in orbit. I found this 6-sided copper-lined box in an antique store. The seller said it was a sewing box, but I haven't been able to find anything that matches it online. Does anyone know what this is? What you found is a copper-lined cigar humidor cabinet, designed to keep cigars fresh by maintaining stable humidity levels. The copper interior helps regulate moisture and prevents the cigars from drying out or becoming too damp, which can ruin their flavor and quality. This type of humidor, known as a cabinet humidor, was typically used as a freestanding piece of furniture and was popular in the late 19th and early 20th centuries when cigar smoking was widespread. Unlike smaller desktop humidors, cabinet models like this could store a larger number of cigars and were commonly found in gentlemen's parlors, studies, or smoking rooms. Dear viewers, if you enjoy our videos, please subscribe to the channel and give this one a thumbs up. It influences the YouTube algorithm and the video gets promoted more effectively. Thank you. I saw this long pole with a corkscrew-shaped tip in a museum in Montenegro. It was displayed alongside antique guns, so I thought it might be an old weapon, but it doesn't look practical for combat. Does anyone know what it is? What you found is a type of artillery tool known as a worm. Despite its intimidating appearance, it wasn't a weapon. It was a vital part of the maintenance equipment for muzzle-loading cannons. The corkscrew-shaped iron tip was designed to reach into the barrel and remove remnants of cloth powder bags or other debris left behind after a shot. If these weren't cleared properly, they could ignite and trigger a dangerous premature explosion during the next loading. The worm was usually mounted on a long wooden pole, like the one you saw, and was commonly stored on the artillery carriage or attached to the end of the sponge staff. Tools like this were widely used in European and American artillery from the 17th to the 19th century. I found this sturdy ceramic mug with a lid at my grandparents' house. The lid seems a little unusual and doesn't quite fit like a regular cup cover. Does anyone know what this might be used for? What you found is a butter bell, also known as a French butter dish. This clever container is designed to keep butter fresh and spreadable without refrigeration. It consists of 2 parts, a base that holds a small amount of water and a bell-shaped lid that holds the butter. To use it, softened butter is packed into the lid, which is then inverted into the base filled with water. The water forms an airtight seal that keeps oxygen out, helping prevent the butter from spoiling. As long as the water is changed regularly and the temperature stays below 80 degrees Fahrenheit, the butter can remain fresh and spreadable for up to a month. I found this brass container at a thrift store in California. It has ornate punch designs in the metal, a handle on top, and a latch with a hole for a lock. There are no markings on it. Does anyone know what this might be? What you found is likely a pandan, a traditional container used in India and nearby regions to store ingredients for preparing pan. Pan is a cultural after-meal chew made from a betel leaf filled with chopped areca nut, slaked lime paste, and a variety of flavorings or spices. It's chewed for its stimulating effect and refreshing taste. The pandan is typically made of brass or silver and features intricate punched or engraved designs, much like the one you found. It usually includes a latch and a handle, as it was intended to be both portable and secure. Inside, it may have held several small compartments or containers to keep each ingredient separate. These containers were widely used in South Asia during the 19th and early 20th centuries and are still found in traditional households and ceremonial settings today. I found this antique wooden stand with 2 folding panels held up by chains. It looks decorative, but I can't figure out what it was used for. Does anyone know what this might be? What you found is an antique gentleman's trouser press, a piece of furniture once used to smooth wrinkles from suit pants without using heat. These were especially popular in the late 19th and early 20th centuries among well-dressed men who traveled or stayed in formal households. The 2 folding panels held by chains would clamp down on a pair of trousers, laid across the flat wooden board, applying gentle but firm pressure overnight. The idea was to press the pants without damaging delicate fabrics or leaving a shine from a hot iron. The hooks or finials at the top were commonly used to hang a suit jacket or shirt, making it a compact, all-in-one valet stand. These presses were typically placed in bedrooms or dressing rooms, and were considered part of a refined daily routine. I found this wooden tool with a heavy rubber-coated head and a tapered handle. It looks like a club or mallet and seems quite dense. I bought it at an estate sale, but no one knew what it was used for. Does anyone recognize it? What you found is a wood carving mallet, the kind used to strike chisels in detailed woodworking or sculpting. Unlike traditional hammers, carving mallets are made with a broad cylindrical head, typically weighted with metal and covered in rubber, to deliver steady, even pressure without damaging the chisel or straining the user's hand. The tapered wooden handle gives a comfortable grip and allows for precise control during use. The rubber coating on the head helps absorb shock and improves handling when working with delicate tools. These mallets are preferred by skilled woodworkers and carvers for their balance, weight, and smooth impact, without the jarring rebound you get from metal hammers. I found this heavy brass object in a kitchen drawer. It has strange markings like ALCO, a rotating ring with numbers and some holes on the top. It looks like part of a larger mechanical device. What is this, and what was it used for? What you found is a World War I era artillery time fuse, specifically the nose fuse from a timed explosive shell. These brass components were designed to be screwed into the tip of a shell and control exactly when it would detonate, either after a set time or upon impact. The graduated rings with numbers around the body form part of the adjustable timing mechanism. By rotating the ring to a specific setting, artillery crews could set how many seconds after launch the shell would explode. Markings such as ALCO Lot 617 indicate the manufacturer and production batch. ALCO, short for the American Locomotive Company, was one of several companies that produced military ordnance during the early 20th century. The small holes near the top were part of the ignition system. As the shell was fired, the propellant's flame would enter these holes, initiating the timed delay. Once the internal mechanism reached the end of its countdown, it would trigger the detonation of the shell's main explosive charge. I found this strange sand-like object in shallow water along the coast of the Red Sea in Egypt. It looks like a spiral with a hole in the center, feels fragile, and crumbles easily. It doesn't seem to be alive, but I've never seen anything like it before. Does anyone know what it might be? What you found is called a sand collar, a fascinating structure created by female moon snails when they lay their eggs. The name comes from its resemblance to a ruffled, detachable shirt collar. These collars are made by mixing sand with mucus, forming a flexible, spiraled ring. The snail uses her foot to gather sand and shape the collar while depositing thousands of eggs between two layers of the sand-mucus mixture. The hole in the center shows where the snail's body was during the process. If the collar is still intact, it might still contain developing embryos. After the eggs hatch, the structure breaks apart, releasing the larvae into the ocean. I picked up this small silver oblong tool at an estate sale. It's around 3 inches long, has an ornate design, and the word "Gjørsilver" engraved on it. There's a bit of thread still looped inside. What is this used for? What you found is a tatting shuttle, a traditional tool used in the craft of lace making. Tatting is a method for creating durable lace by forming knots and loops, and the shuttle helps guide the thread as these patterns take shape. This particular shuttle is an antique, likely made from German silver, a nickel alloy known for its silver-like appearance and features detailed engraving that reflects both function and artistry. The shuttle holds a length of wound thread on a central spool, and is passed through loops to form what are called double stitches, which create rings and chains. These lace patterns were commonly used to embellish collars, cuffs, handkerchiefs, doilies, and other accessories. The design of your shuttle, with its compact size, pointed ends, and inner post, is characteristic of shuttles made in the late 19th to early 20th centuries, a period when handmade lace was still highly regarded in fashion and interior decoration. I found this small metal object among my grandmother's belongings. It's about the size of a nail, slightly curved on one side, with some decorative patterns near the top. There's no writing on it, and it seems solid. Does anyone know what this was used for? What you found is a decorative hairpin, most likely used as part of a traditional hair accessory or ornamental hair clip. Its tapered shape, flattened profile, and detailed pattern near the top suggest it was designed not only to secure hair but also to serve as an embellishment. These kinds of metal hairpins were commonly made from silver or silver-plated alloys and were popular in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. They were favored in many regions, including parts of Europe and South Asia, and were typically inserted into buns or updos, either as functional fasteners or purely decorative accents. I picked up these two silver-colored items at an auction in Southern Virginia. They fit in the palm of my hand and are both hollow. On one side, there appears to be the emblem of Brazil. Does anyone know what they are? What you've got here is a pair of Passador de Louro. These are decorative saddle fittings that were traditionally used in Brazil and in other Portuguese-speaking countries. They're metal pieces that slide over the leather straps, called louros, which are the straps that connect to a horse's stirrups. They serve both a practical and decorative purpose. They help keep the stirrup leathers in place, and at the same time, they show off regional or national identity. The designs on your pieces are especially interesting because they feature two important Brazilian emblems. On one side, you can see the national coat of arms of Brazil, along with the date November 15th, 1889. That's the date Brazil became a republic. On the other side, you've got the emblem of the República Rio-Grandiense, which was a short-lived separatist state that existed from 1836 to 1845 in southern Brazil. It also includes the motto Humanidade, Liberdade, Igualdade, which in English means humanity, liberty, equality, reflecting the republican ideals of that movement. These fittings are usually made from a silver-colored alloy called alpaca, also known as German silver, and they were especially popular among gauchos, the South American cowboys during the late 1800s and early 1900s. While visiting Tórshavn in the Faroe Islands, I saw this mounted on the wall of a restaurant. It's made of wood, about 8 inches in diameter with a rotating outer ring. I didn't try moving the inner rings to avoid damaging it. Does anyone know what it is? The item you found is a tide calculator, known in Faroes as a streamtalva, which translates to stream calculator. It's designed to predict the direction and strength of tidal currents around the Faroe Islands, where the meeting of the Atlantic Ocean and the Norwegian Sea creates strong and complex tidal flows. This calculator uses a volvel design, a type of circular chart with rotating parts, historically considered an early analog computer. The outer ring displays a 24-hour clock and moon phases, while the inner ring contains place names and tide information for specific locations. To use it, you align the main arrow with the current moon phase, then find the location you're interested in. The red and white sections around that location indicate when tidal currents will be stronger or weaker, and whether they will flow eastward or westward. In regions like the Faroe Islands, knowing these currents is essential for safe navigation and fishing, and tools like this have been a key part of maritime tradition for generations. I came across this heavy metal ball about 8 pounds and 3 inches in diameter, with a chain screwed into it and a slot on the side. I found it at an abandoned psychiatric asylum that's been empty for about 40 years. This object is a cast iron gate closer weight, a device once widely used to help gates close smoothly and automatically. The heavy ball was attached to a chain running through the side slot, with the threaded bolt holding it securely in place. When the gate was opened, the chain lifted the weight, and once released, gravity pulled it down, creating steady tension to swing the gate shut. Gate closer weights like this were especially popular in the late 19th and early 20th centuries on farms, estates, and institutional grounds, where large gates needed to be reliably closed to contain livestock, protect property, or control access. I found a small cylindrical object that extends outward and can be twisted to reveal a smaller hollow tube on the opposite end. It has the name Fairchild inscribed on it and measures about 2 to 3 inches in length. There's also a thin longitudinal slit running down the center. Does anyone know what this might be? This item is a Victorian pencil pendant made by the Leroy Fairchild Company, a prominent American manufacturer of fine writing instruments in the 19th century. The split end was designed to hold and compress a piece of graphite, serving as an early form of mechanical pencil. These pencil pendants were popular accessories, especially among women, and were commonly worn on a chain or chatelaine for quick access when taking notes, recording appointments, or writing letters. The Leroy Fairchild Company was known for its high-quality craftsmanship and held numerous patents for writing instrument mechanisms, designs, and utility models. Unfortunately, the company went bankrupt in 1905, making surviving examples like this both rare and collectible. Dear viewers, if you enjoy our videos, please subscribe to the channel and give this one a thumbs up. It influences the YouTube algorithm and the video gets promoted more effectively. Thank you. We found this antique-looking foot-operated device with spikes on the roadside near our home in Sydney, Australia. The area used to be industrial. It's about 4 feet tall and has no visible logos or markings. Does anyone know what it might have been used for? The item you found is a shoemaker's eyelet press, possibly handmade. These presses were used to punch holes and insert eyelets into shoes. The large open arc at the top provided enough space to maneuver the shoe into position, while the angled design made it easier to work without having the press completely flat. The foot pedal operated the mechanism, allowing the shoemaker to keep both hands free to position the material precisely. I came across this antique wooden box with small drawers and evenly sized holes on top. There are no markings or inscriptions anywhere on it. Does anyone know what it is? What you found is most likely a box used for a ball voting system, a method of casting secret votes that dates back centuries. In this system, each participant would use a small ball, traditionally a white ball for yes and a black ball for no. A person would pull out one of the drawers, place their chosen ball inside, and then slide the drawer back into the box. Once everyone had voted, the top of the box could be removed, allowing the person in charge of counting to clearly see and tally the results without revealing individual votes during the process. Ballot boxes of this type were commonly used in fraternal organizations, clubs, and certain official committees during the 19th and early 20th centuries, valued for their simplicity and the anonymity they provided. I found this item in the basement, and it looks like some kind of guillotine, but it isn't sharp. It can't even cut paper. It measures about 8 by 8 inches and is made of plastic and metal. The larger part is plastic with ridges, a winder, and a scale that goes up to about 3/4 of an inch. There's some Russian text on the bottom, and the metal part also has ridges. Does anyone know what this tool is for? The item you found is a Soviet-era vegetable and cheese slicer, developed in the 1970s. It was designed to make slicing food easier and more uniform. The large plastic base with ridges served as a stable surface for the food, while the winder and built-in scale, ranging up to about 3/4 of an inch, allowed the user to adjust the thickness of the slices with precision. The owner of the restaurant where I work has this copper pot with an inner cylinder held by a bracket, along with a vented lid. Does anyone know what this might be used for? This item is an antique Petri dish sterilization chamber, most likely made around the 1930s. It was designed to hold standard 100 by 15 millimeter Petri dishes, widely used in laboratories for culturing microorganisms. The T-shaped bracket inside holds the dishes securely in place, ensuring they remain stable and separated during the sterilization process. To use it, the clean, empty Petri dishes would be loaded into the chamber, which was then sealed with the vented lid. The entire unit would be placed inside a pressure cooker or autoclave, where high-pressure steam sterilized the glassware. While its primary purpose was for Petri dishes, the chamber could also be used to sterilize any small items that fit inside, making it a versatile piece of laboratory equipment. I came across this wooden box that looks like it could be antique. The top flips open, and there's no back wall. It measures about 16 inches long and 8 inches wide, with a slope from about 6 inches high in the back to about 2 inches in the front. This is a charging valet, designed to organize and charge electronic devices while keeping cords hidden from view. The open back allows power cables to pass through, while the top compartment can hold phones, tablets, or other gadgets as they charge. The interior sections help keep devices separated, and the lid conceals them when closed, giving the box a neat, uncluttered appearance. Although the dark wood and design might make it seem antique, it's actually a relatively modern item made to blend with traditional furniture styles. Charging valets became popular in the late 20th and early 21st centuries as a stylish solution for managing multiple devices and their cords in homes and offices. I found this metal object with a metal detector in the countryside in Bolivia. It's about the size of a palm. The item you found appears to be a copper Inca axe head, likely from the pre-Columbian period, dating back to around the 15th century. Its shape and decorative motif suggest it is authentic. Inca axe heads were crafted for various purposes, ranging from practical and combative use to ceremonial roles. Smaller examples like this one were typically ceremonial, as the size frequently influenced their intended function. Copper held significant value in Andean cultures, both for its durability and its cultural importance. Beyond its practical applications, copper was commonly associated with status and ritual, making artifacts like this meaningful not only as tools but also as symbols within Inca society. I found a gold-colored sphere with legs and a handle. The sphere splits in two, and each side has a lid. One lid is marked Wilson's patent, and the other has a series of letters and a small shield symbol. The item you found is a Victorian folding biscuit box, a style that was popular in the 19th century. These boxes were designed to hold biscuits or small pastries and were frequently elaborately decorated, making them both functional and ornamental. The sphere shape opens into two compartments, each with a hinged, pierced lid to keep the contents fresh while allowing some ventilation. The Wilson's patent marking indicates that the design or mechanism was patented by Wilson, a maker known for producing such pieces. The additional marks and shield symbol are hallmarks, which can provide information about the maker, metal content, and date of manufacture. Many of these biscuit boxes were made of sterling silver or silver plate, and if yours is sterling, it could be of considerable value to collectors today. I found this short table or desk on the street in Los Angeles. It has an opening in the front, a fence-like back, and storage compartments on both sides. It's about knee height. The item you found appears to be an American colonial coffee table, produced by Ethan Allen in the late 1960s to early 1970s. Founded in 1932, Ethan Allen is known for high-quality home furnishings and continues to produce classic styles. This table's design includes side storage compartments for items such as remotes, magazines, or TV guides, while the back rail is intended to keep objects, like drinks on coasters, from sliding off the surface. I found this small wooden box, which I was told was made in the early 1900s, and might have been used for rings, but I'm not convinced. The compartments are slanted and small, measuring about 4 inches by 2 inches. There are no inscriptions or markings on the wood. The item you found is most likely a triple stamp box, used in the early 1900s to store and organize postage stamps. The 3 slanted compartments were designed to separate different denominations, making them easy to access when sending mail. Its compact size made it a convenient desk accessory for anyone who handled correspondence regularly. I found this bronze-colored metal object at my grandma's house, and no one seems to know what it is. It's about 5 inches long, has crown-like open ends with pointed tips that show some wear, and there is threading in the center. The item you found is a vajra, a ritual object with deep symbolic meaning in both Hinduism and Buddhism. Sometimes referred to as the thunderbolt or diamond because of its associations with strength and indestructibility. Its crown-like pointed ends symbolize the combination of spiritual power and clarity, qualities believed to cut through ignorance. The threaded center is the part that is held during rituals. In Buddhist traditions, the vajra represents the unbreakable and enduring nature of enlightenment. It is commonly paired with a bell, or ghanta, during ceremonies. Together, the vajra and bell symbolize the union of compassion and wisdom, both essential for achieving spiritual growth. In Hindu mythology, the vajra is connected to Indra, the god of thunder, who wields it as a divine weapon to protect cosmic order. I found this silver-toned metal piece with opals in a box of items I bought at a swap meet. The top swivels, and there are tubes on each side that look like they're meant for something to be inserted. It seems designed to be worn or attached in some way, but I can't figure out exactly how. Does anyone know what this is? The item you found is a piece of jewelry designed to be worn in multiple ways. It can function as a bolo-style slide pendant, with a cord threaded through the two side tubes, or as a traditional pendant on a leather or silk cord using the curved tube at the top. The swivel design allows you to easily adjust its position, while the opal inlays add an elegant, decorative touch. I came across this unusual device in the basement of the physics department. The center disc is made of glass, and there's a piece of blue fabric attached to it. Does anyone know what this might be or what it was used for? This device is an electrostatic generator, a machine designed to produce static electricity using the triboelectric effect. Machines like this, including the Wimshurst and Bonetti generators, were invented in the 18th century and became widely used in physics laboratories and classrooms throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries. The way it worked was simple. As the glass disc rotated, it rubbed against the blue fabric, creating friction and generating an electrical charge. That charge was then collected in different parts of the apparatus, typically stored in Leyden jars or similar capacitors. Once enough charge built up, the machine could release it as a visible spark or be used to demonstrate other electrical experiments. I found this lightweight silver scoop with a Bakelite handle in an Italian villa. The design is quite ornate, and while it might have been used for ashes, it doesn't really show signs of wear. It feels too small to be practical for most purposes. Does anyone know what it was actually used for? The item you found is a vintage silver-plated table butler scoop, a utensil used in formal dining settings during the early to mid-20th century. These scoops were designed to remove crumbs from the table between courses, helping maintain cleanliness and proper etiquette throughout the meal. The Bakelite handle suggests it was made between the 1920s and 1940s, when Bakelite was a popular choice for utensil handles because of its durability and ease of molding. Such tools were standard in wealthy European households, especially in Italy and France, where formal dining customs placed great emphasis on refinement and presentation. I found this large vessel in the basement of an old psychiatric hospital. It has openings on both sides of a concrete wall with heavy steel doors, each about 5 feet by 5 feet. One of the gauges on the side is labeled ammonia. The hospital was built in the late 1800s. Does anyone know what it is? What you found is a large autoclave, most likely used to sterilize mattresses, bedding, and other hospital equipment. Autoclaves like this were an essential part of medical facilities in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, especially in large institutions such as psychiatric hospitals, where controlling the spread of disease was critical. The massive steel doors and the chamber size, about 5 feet square, show that it was designed to handle bulky items in large quantities. The gauge-marked ammonia points to its role in the sterilization process. Ammonia could be introduced to raise the pH and improve the effectiveness of disinfectants, while also having the advantage of evaporating without leaving harmful residues. Machines of this kind used pressurized steam, chemicals, or a combination of both to destroy bacteria and pathogens. Dear viewers, if you enjoy our videos, please subscribe to the channel and give this one a thumbs up. It influences the YouTube algorithm and the video gets promoted more effectively. Thank you. I found a set of heavy metal cups that nest inside each other among my grandfather's belongings. The set includes 7 cups and a container to store them. They feel quite heavy. Does anyone know what they were used for? The heavy metal cups you found are a set of nested cup weights, a design primarily used by merchants for measuring coins and precious metals. These sets were especially common in Europe during the 17th century, with many of them produced in Nuremberg, a Bavarian city well known for its skilled artisans and thriving trade. Each cup in the set was precisely calibrated, with the smaller ones weighing half as much as the next larger cup. The cups were designed to fit neatly inside one another, and the outer container, sometimes called the house, was made to equal the total combined weight of the set. This system allowed merchants to carry an entire range of standardized weights in a compact, portable form. I recently inherited this heavy cast iron device from my grandfather. The roller handle has the year 1880 engraved on it, and the instructions say to place it on a stove. There's also a removable metal piece underneath the roller. Does anyone know what this item was used for? What you have is a crimping or fluting iron, a Victorian-era household tool designed to create decorative pleats and crimps in fabric. These devices were especially popular in the late 19th century, when intricate textures were highly fashionable in women's clothing, particularly in collars, cuffs, ruffles, and dresses. The way it worked was simple but effective. The removable metal plate was placed on a stove to heat up. Once hot, it was positioned under the roller, and fabric would be carefully fed between the heated plate and the ribbed roller. By pressing and rolling the cloth through, it produced sharp, durable pleats that held their shape. The first patents for fluting irons appeared in the United States and Europe in the 1870s and 1880s. One well-known manufacturer was Shepherd Hardware Company of Buffalo, New York, which became recognized for producing high-quality mechanical fluting irons. These irons were widely used by seamstresses, laundresses, and homemakers, who frequently needed to maintain the crisp, fashionable look of garments worn by the middle and upper classes. I inherited this tool from my grandfather, who was a carpenter, so I assume it's related to woodworking. Does anyone know what it might have been used for? This tool is a dowel maker, used by carpenters to create smooth, round wooden dowels. Dowels were an essential part of traditional woodworking, providing strong, hidden joints in furniture and other projects. To operate it, a square or slightly oversized piece of wood was placed into the tool. As the wood passed through, a sharp blade shaved it down into a perfectly round dowel. The rotating disc with multiple openings allowed the craftsman to select different diameters, making it possible to produce dowels to fit a variety of needs. Tools like this became popular in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, before factory-made dowels were widely available. I bought this scissors-like tool at a flea market years ago. At first I thought it might be an oyster opener, but it clearly isn't. Does anyone know what it is? What you purchased is a vintage umbilical clamp, dating back to the late 19th century. This medical tool was used during childbirth to stop bleeding from the blood vessels in the umbilical cord after it was cut. The design is symbolic. Many of these clamps were shaped like a stork, a traditional figure associated with bringing babies. While it may look decorative, the form carried both cultural meaning and practical use. At that time, such instruments were typically crafted from durable metals, and some were even made of solid silver. By the 20th century, medical practice shifted to disposable plastic clamps, which were safer and easier to sterilize. Today, antique versions like yours are rare collectibles and can be valued at several $100s, especially if they are in good condition. I found this unusual tool in a drawer of an old house. It's about 5 inches long with a decorative handle made of either wood or fancy plastic. One end has a threaded, removable metal prong. Does anyone know what this tool was used for? This tool is a vintage Warren cutlery carving tool designed for woodworking or leatherworking. Warren Cutlery, founded in 1927, became known for producing high-quality tools with interchangeable blades. The decorative handle, made from fine wood or composite material, and the threaded, removable prong were part of a system that allowed craftsmen to attach different blades for various tasks. The removable prong served as the locking mechanism for the blade attachments, making the tool versatile and adaptable. Sets like this were widely used by wood carvers and leather workers who needed precision and flexibility in their work. What is this lightweight, teardrop-shaped wooden object with 3 small legs that I found in a curio cabinet? What you found is most likely a small display stand, probably made to hold a jade or another decorative figure. Stands like this were common in collections, especially in the early 20th century, such as the Chinese jade goose collection from the 1930s. The teardrop shape and 3 small legs allowed the object placed on top to be elevated and displayed more elegantly. I came across this small metal cube, about 1 inch on each side, with various indentations of different sizes on every face. It looks like it's made of brass or copper. Does anyone know what it might have been used for? What you have is a dapping block, a tool widely used in jewelry making and metalworking. Dapping blocks are usually made from brass or steel and feature multiple indentations of different sizes. These indentations allow jewelers to shape, dome, or curve metal pieces by placing them into the depressions and striking them with a dapping punch. The variety of indentations provides flexibility for working with different sizes of metal, making it possible to create domed beads, curved components, or other rounded shapes used in jewelry. Small blocks like this were practical for detailed work and have been standard tools in workshops for generations. While helping a friend clean out his grandfather's old barn, I came across this heavy cast iron tool. It has two curved arms shaped like hooks and a central pivot that allows them to open and close when pressure is applied. It looks like it was made to grip or lift something heavy. Does anyone know what it is? The item you found is a grapple, designed to be securely attached to a beam or rafter. This tool was part of a larger hay handling system that was commonly used in barns during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. According to United States Patent Number 100,330, issued to William Bragg on March 1, 1870, its primary function was to serve as a fixed anchor point to support lifting mechanisms for hay bales and other heavy loads. The self-closing design provided a dependable grip, improving both efficiency and safety when moving large quantities of hay. While its main use was agricultural, the design could also be adapted for other heavy lifting tasks, such as handling ice blocks or logs, making it a versatile piece of farm equipment in its time. This machine was passed down to me from my late grandfather. It has a crank with a wooden handle that spins a large gear and can be locked with a metal pin. The device is mostly made of metal and mounted on a wooden base, measuring about 8 by 16 inches. Does anyone know what it was used for? This device is a hand-cranked cutting machine, most likely used for slicing materials such as tobacco or for cutting straw, and stalks into chaff for feeding animals. The crank with the wooden handle moves a blade up and down, and with each stroke, a pawl on the large cogwheel advances the gear slightly. This mechanism allowed for steady, rhythmic cutting. Machines like this became common in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when both tobacco preparation and small-scale farming required efficient tools. I found this metal cylinder weighing about 8 to 10 ounces and measuring around 6 inches in length. Can anyone help identify what it might be? What you found is most likely a time capsule. According to an update later shared by the original poster on Reddit, this cylinder was part of a time capsule buried in June 1970 and unearthed in 2020 on the courthouse lawn in East Tennessee. The capsule itself was a pine coffin sealed inside a concrete vault, buried by a group of local business leaders along with a few local historians. When the cylinder was opened, it contained a paper listing the names of those who had buried the capsule 50 years earlier. Today, this piece is displayed in the local library where the poster works as director, and it remains one of the few surviving relics from that 1970 time capsule. I found this leather pouch with soft, circular cushions on the inside. The outside looks like pleather, similar to a wallet, while the inside is lined with a velvety material. Any idea what it might be used for? What you found is a glasses case designed for storing eyeglasses. The padded circular sections inside are shaped to hold the lenses securely, while the temples extend out through the back of the case. The pleather exterior and velvety interior help protect the glasses from scratches and damage. The strap with a latch and the loop attachment were added for convenience, allowing the case to be clipped to a bag or belt, so the glasses could be carried safely and kept close at hand. I found this wooden and brass device in my engineer grandfather's house. It's about 2 feet long and looks to be at least 50 years old. Does anyone know what it might have been used for? What you found is an antique tensile strength testing machine, built in the late 19th or early 20th century. This instrument, with its oak base and brass fittings, was made to measure the strength of materials such as thread, cord, textiles, or fine wire. A sample would be secured between the clamps, and as force was gradually applied through the geared mechanism, the machine measured how much tension the material could endure before breaking. In industries such as textile manufacturing, machines like this were essential for maintaining quality and durability. They helped manufacturers establish consistent standards and improve reliability in production. I found this wooden object with a long handle and a double-bowled top at an antiques market in the Chicago suburbs. It's more than 12 inches long. Does anyone know what it is? What you found is an ojhao, a traditional Kazakh ladle used for serving drinks such as kumiz, kefir, milk, and other liquids. This ceremonial scoop consists of a hollow double-bowled top and a long handle, making it both functional and decorative. Wooden versions of the utensil have been in use since at least the 2nd century AD, as shown by archaeological discoveries in Central Asia. During the early Iron Age, carved ladles were common, while metal counterparts became more widespread between the 16th and 19th centuries. Craftsmen fashioned them from durable woods like chestnut or oak, frequently decorating the handles with intricate ornaments. Among wealthy Kazakhs, these serving tools could even be adorned with silver, gold, or precious stones, turning them into both practical objects and works of art. I came across this handle with long, sharp metal prongs at a thrift shop in the kitchenware section. It's about 10 inches long. Does anyone know what this tool is used for? What you found is a cake breaker, a utensil designed specifically for cutting delicate cakes like angel food cake. Unlike a knife, which would crush or compress the cake's light, airy texture, the thin prongs of a cake breaker glide through gently, keeping the slice intact. These tools became popular in the mid-20th century, when angel food cake was a common dessert, and are still appreciated today by bakers who want perfect, fluffy slices. I found this metal object with wire fingers and a long rope at an old decommissioned salmon canning facility on the west coast of British Columbia. Does anyone know what this could be? What you found is a Newman chimney brush, a specialized tool designed to remove soot and creosote from chimneys. Its construction includes wire fingers connected to a top plate that slide through a lower plate. When the rope is pulled, the fingers spread outward and press against the walls of the chimney, scraping away soot and debris. This type of brush was patented by the Newman family in 1930 and later manufactured on a larger scale in the mid-1980s in Wittenberg, Wisconsin. I found this aluminum object about 9 inches long, with spring-loaded wire arms. It was left behind in a warehouse once used by special forces in Baghdad, Iraq. Does anyone know what this could be? What you found is a rifle-launched grapnel hook, a specialized tool developed for combat engineering. These devices were designed to be launched from rifles such as the M16 or M4 to clear obstacles like tripwires or barbed wire from a safe distance. The grapnel attaches to the muzzle of the rifle and is propelled forward by firing a blank cartridge. Once launched, the wire arms expand outward, catching on wires or other obstructions. Soldiers could then pull the rope attached to the grapnel to remove or disable the obstacle without exposing themselves to direct danger. My grandparents own a decorative shield that has been in the family for so long they can't remember where it came from. It measures about 12 inches across and has the name Elkington engraved on the back. The shield was crafted by Elkington & Company, a renowned English silver manufacturer founded in the 1830s by George and Henry Elkington. The company became well known for its innovations in silver electroplating and produced a wide range of silverware, trophies, and ceremonial replicas. Decorative shields like this one were made during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, which is most likely when yours was created. The detailed design with a lion, cherubs, and floral motifs indicates it was intended as a display piece rather than for combat. These shields served as symbols of prestige and honor, used in ceremonies as awards or simply as decorative items in elegant homes. Owning a shield from Elkington & Company would have been considered a mark of refinement and high social standing at the time. I found this unusual glass ball held by screws inside a bronze-colored metal frame. The whole object stands about 10 inches tall, and the sphere itself is roughly 7 to 8 inches in diameter. The ball can rotate and looks like it could be removed with the right tools. Does anyone know what this is used for? What you found is a Campbell-Stokes sunshine recorder, a scientific instrument used to measure the duration of bright sunshine during the day. It was invented by John Francis Campbell in 1853 and later improved by Sir George Gabriel Stokes in 1879. The glass sphere works like a large lens, focusing sunlight onto a specially designed recording card placed in the metal frame. As the sun moves across the sky, the concentrated light burns a trace on the card. The length and depth of these burn marks indicate the total number of hours of bright sunshine for that day. This device became a standard tool at meteorological stations around the world, from the late 19th century through much of the 20th century. Although simple in design, it provided a highly accurate visual record of sunshine hours. One limitation, however, is that when the sun is very low in the sky, the rays may not be strong enough to leave a mark, so it records only periods of strong, direct sunlight. What is this small brass tool with evenly sized prongs marked with even numbers? We picked it up at a beach thrift store, but we're not sure what it's for. What you found is a set of gold testing needles, a tool traditionally used by jewelers and appraisers to determine the purity of gold. Each prong is made of gold of a specific carat, usually ranging from 8 to 24 carats. The numbers stamped on the prongs represent those carat values. To use the set, a jeweler would rub both the unknown gold sample and one of the needles against a black testing stone, leaving thin streaks of metal. Acid solutions of different strengths were then applied to the marks. If the acid dissolved the streak from the sample while the one from the needle remained, it meant the sample was of a lower purity than that needle. If the streak stayed intact, the sample matched or exceeded that carat level. A friend came across these two objects while diving in Makaha, Hawaii. They are hard, orange-brown in color, about the size of a large grape, and have a strange layered shape with a crease down the middle. They are solid all the way through and look very similar but not identical. What you found are mouth plates from a pufferfish. These plates are made of tough, layered material that allows the fish to crush and break open the shells of mollusks and crustaceans, which make up a major part of their diet. The crease down the middle marks where the two halves of the beak-like structure meet. Pufferfish are known not only for their unique defense of inflating their bodies, but also for their powerful bite. Many species carry tetrodotoxin, one of the most potent natural poisons, concentrated in their internal organs and sometimes in their skin. Despite this danger, certain pufferfish species are still eaten as a delicacy in Japan, Korea, and China, where specially trained chefs prepare the dish to prevent poisoning. I came across this ornate hollow tube in an antique collection. It's telescoping, has a notched end, and measures about 5 inches long when closed. Does anyone know what it might have been used for? What you found is the handle of a lorgnette, a type of spectacles attached to a handle instead of being worn on the face. This example is decorated with mother-of-pearl panels and gold-filled fittings, making it both practical and ornamental. Lorgnettes became especially popular in the 19th century. While they could assist with vision, they were most often used as elegant accessories. Ladies at the opera, masquerade balls, and other social events carried them, not only to see better, but also to make a statement of fashion and refinement. My grandfather found this small wooden container on a beach in New Jersey shortly after World War II. It has a removable plug, and the top cap twists off. Does anyone know what this could be? What your grandfather found is a powder flask, a small container designed to safely store and dispense gunpowder for muzzle-loading firearms. These flasks were widely used from the 17th through the 19th centuries by soldiers and hunters. The wooden construction was practical because it minimized the risk of sparks, which could be disastrous when handling gunpowder. Other typical materials for flasks included brass, leather, and animal horn, all chosen for their durability and safety. The main purpose of a powder flask was to carry a measured amount of black powder that could be quickly poured into a musket or pistol during reloading. We found this iron needle with Arabic inscriptions while magnet fishing in a canal in the United Kingdom. It's about 5 inches long, 0.4 inches wide, and weighs roughly the same as a small paperweight. The writing appears on all 4 sides and looks different on each. What you found is most likely an Indo-Persian talismanic nail, a type of artifact that was widely used in northern India and Persia during the 19th century. These nails were typically made of iron and inscribed on all sides with Arabic script, usually containing Quranic verses or protective prayers. The purpose of these objects was spiritual rather than practical. They were driven into the walls, doors, or corners of buildings as a safeguard to ward off evil spirits and misfortune, protecting the people who lived inside. The inscriptions on each side were believed to enhance the nail's protective powers, turning it into both a physical and spiritual shield. I found this small strip of paper with numbers and writing on it in the drawer of an old dresser. It was tucked beneath newspapers from the 1940s. Does anyone know what this could be? What you found is a type of promotional stamp that was popular in the United States during the mid-20th century. Grocery stores and other retailers handed out these stamps to customers based on how much they spent. Shoppers would collect the stamps in special booklets provided by the store, and once the booklets were filled, they could be redeemed for items from a prize catalog. The prizes ranged from household goods and toys to decorative pieces, making the stamps an early form of a customer loyalty program. This practice became especially widespread in the 1930s and remained common through the 1960s. The most famous example was S&H green stamps, though many regional companies produced their own versions. I came across this metal object with a wooden handle and evenly offset prongs. It's marked Inox France. Does anyone know what it is? What you found is a potato fork, a specialized kitchen tool designed to safely handle hot potatoes. Its offset prongs provide a firm grip, making it easier to hold a potato while peeling or cutting, and helping to reduce the risk of burns or slips. The marking Inox France indicates that it is made of stainless steel, inox being short for inoxidable, the French word for stainless. I came across this small waterproof container holding 5 metal tubes, each about 1.75 inches long and 1/8 of an inch in diameter. The tubes are half filled with an unknown substance and cushioned by foam at the bottom of the case. It was found in a collapsed stone wall in France, estimated to be around 100 years old. Does anyone know what these tubes were used for? The small tubes you found are non-electric blasting caps, used as detonators for explosives. They were designed to set off a larger charge and were widely used in the mid-20th century, particularly during World War II and in the years that followed. Inside each cap is a small ignition charge, typically made from compounds such as lead styphnate and barium chromate, which provided the spark needed to trigger the main explosive. The waterproof and shock-resistant container you discovered was essential for keeping the detonators safe and stable, especially in demanding environments like construction sites, quarries, or military operations. I found these small ceramic-looking pieces scattered around a country estate in Sussex. There are about 100 of them in total. Does anyone know what they are? What you found are pieces of ceramic tumbling media, which are used in vibratory or rotary tumblers to clean and finish metal parts. Their purpose is to smooth surfaces, remove sharp edges, polish or prepare parts for further coating or assembly. The unique triangular shape helps them reach into corners and tight spaces during the tumbling process. Ceramic tumbling media has been widely used in industries such as metalworking, jewelry making, and manufacturing since the mid-20th century. By mixing these media pieces with parts in a tumbling machine, manufacturers could achieve consistent finishing results much more efficiently than by hand. I came across this reflective metal plate and a matching metal stick, each with a hole to look through. They were stored in the emergency kit of a 1972 Danish sailing boat, along with flares and other survival gear. Does anyone know what these were used for? What you found is a signal mirror with a sighting device, designed for use in maritime emergency situations. This particular type was manufactured in Germany, as indicated by the word Fabrik on the label, most likely in Augsburg, a well-known industrial center. The signal mirror was a critical part of survival kits carried on boats and aircraft throughout much of the 20th century. Unlike an ordinary mirror, it includes a small companion piece, the narrow stick with a hole, that serves as a sighting aid. To use it, you would hold the mirror so it reflects sunlight, look through the hole in the sighting stick, and then align the reflected beam with your target. This ensured the bright flash of light could be aimed with surprising precision, clearly visible for miles across the water. The flash could even be manipulated in short and long bursts to send Morse code messages. I found this unusual tool with gouge points on both ends of the blade. The handle appears to be brass, and the blade is stamped Hunkens Willis St. Louis, Germany, with a nautical symbol on the reverse side. One end of the blade folds to protect one of the points. It was discovered at the bottom of an antique machinist's chest I purchased. The tool you found is a timber scribe, also known as a race knife. It was commonly used in the late 18th and 19th centuries for marking or scribing wood in trades such as carpentry, lumbering, shipbuilding, and barrel making. The sharp gouge points were designed to carve durable marks directly into the timber, which would not fade like chalk or pencil. The nautical symbol stamped on the blade suggests it may have been used in maritime carpentry or shipbuilding, where accurate marking was critical for fitting planks and beams. In other trades, timber scribes were used to record ownership marks, measurements, or assembly notations. For example, barrel makers used them to mark staves so they could be assembled in the correct order. I found this set of brass tools from 1772 in a black textured case, along with a ruler marked with scales and tables. Does anyone know what these instruments were used for? What you found is an antique drafting set from 1772, used for technical drawing, geometry, and architectural or engineering work. These sets contained precision instruments such as compasses, dividers, ruling pens, and proportional tools, all stored neatly in a fitted case. The ruler with scales and conversion tables was an essential part of the kit, helping with measurements and calculations. The case itself is covered in shagreen, a textured material made from shark or ray skin, which was fashionable in the 18th century for high-quality instrument cases. The inscription with the name and date indicates the original owner and adds to its historical value. Sets like this were treasured possessions for craftsmen, architects, and engineers, as they represented both status and technical skill. While cleaning, I came across this heavy tool with a sliding handle that moves up and down the shaft. The head looks designed to clamp onto something and pull it out. Can anyone tell me what it's for? The tool you found is a nail and staple puller, designed to make removing fasteners quick and efficient. The heavy sliding handle works almost like a built-in hammer. By driving the head into the wood beside a nail or staple, the jaws are forced underneath. Once the head locks around the fastener, the long body and sidearm provide the leverage needed to pry it out smoothly. Tools of this type became popular in the early 20th century, when mass-produced nails and staples were widely used in construction and furniture making. I came across this large metal cylinder washed up on the beach in Husavik, Iceland. It's completely sealed, heavily rusted, and has several round fixtures along its surface. What you found is a Soviet-era sonar listening buoy, also known as a sonobuoy. These devices were developed for naval use to detect underwater sounds, such as those produced by submarines or ships. Once deployed into the ocean, the buoy would release hydrophones, specialized underwater microphones that captured sound waves beneath the surface. The information was then transmitted by radio back to aircraft or ships monitoring the area. Husavik, located along the North Atlantic, was a strategic region where both NATO and Soviet forces operated, making it very possible for discarded or lost equipment like this to wash ashore. I found this glass tube with sterling silver end cap stamped Empire Sterling. I was told it might be a letter tube, but I haven't been able to find anything similar. The caps seem like they can come off, but I haven't managed to remove them. What you found is a sterling silver and glass certificate holder, sometimes called a christening or birth certificate tube. These were popular gifts in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, and were designed to store important documents such as birth certificates, baptism records, or even wedding certificates. This tool was donated to our museum without any identifying information. It has a solid wooden handle and a heavy metal head with two curved prongs. Does anyone know what it is? The tool you've received is known as a picaroon, sometimes called a hookaroon. It was traditionally used in lumber yards and sawmills to move and handle logs. The curved, pointed prongs of the head were designed to bite into the wood, allowing workers to pull, push, or roll heavy logs with far less effort. Tools like this became especially common in the 19th and early 20th centuries, both in North America and Europe. They were essential for loggers who relied on them to maneuver timber safely and efficiently. I found this silver metal sphere with holes that can be unhinged and opened. Does anyone know what it's used for? What you found is a vintage French rice cooker ball, sometimes called a rice cooking sphere or infusion ball. Made of aluminum, it was designed to hold rice or other ingredients while being placed directly into a pot of boiling water. The small holes allowed water to circulate freely through the sphere, cooking the rice evenly while keeping it contained. This type of utensil was especially practical because it made it easy to lift the rice out of the water all at once without the need to strain it through a separate colander. I found this small sterling silver pot, about 4 to 5 inches wide. The parts seem to stack together and the lid has a notch in it. Does anyone know what this was used for? What you found is a sterling silver sugar bowl with a lid. The notch in the lid is designed to allow a spoon to rest inside the bowl while keeping it covered. This was a common feature in sugar bowls from formal tea and coffee sets, making it easy to serve sugar without removing the lid entirely. The extra middle piece you have is not part of the original sugar bowl set. It looks like a separate item, likely a spoon rest or a small holder for a tea infuser or tea bag, which would have been placed on the table to keep linens clean. I found this heavy metal object in the woods behind my girlfriend's house. It's about 10 inches in diameter and quite solid. Does anyone know what it is? What you found is an old Toledo torch, a type of road flare once used for traffic safety before modern flashing lights and reflective markers became common. These torches were heavy round metal canisters filled with fuel, designed to burn with a bright, visible flame. Road crews placed them along highways, at construction sites, or near hazards to warn approaching drivers, especially at night. I came across this spring-loaded claw tool while packing for a move. Does anyone know what it's used for? What you found is a spring-loaded claw grabber, a small tool designed for picking up items from tight or hard-to-reach spaces. When you press the button at the top, the claw extends and opens, and when you release it, the claw closes around the object. These tools were commonly marketed as olive or ice grabbers, making it easy to pick up small food items at the table without using your fingers. At the same time, they became popular in workshops and garages, where mechanics used them to retrieve screws, bolts, or other small parts that had fallen into cramped spaces. This marble figurine has been in my family since the 1880s, passed down through several generations. It depicts a man and has always been used as a wall ornament. The figurine is about 7 inches tall and seems to be of East Asian origin. There are no inscriptions, but the back looks like it may have once been part of a larger piece. Can anyone help identify its origin or purpose? What you have is a figure of Tia Guai Li, one of the 8 immortals in Chinese mythology. He's recognized by his unusual appearance and his crutch, and he represents resilience and healing. The cloud-shaped base indicates that it was once part of a larger piece depicting all 8 immortals together. Sets like these were displayed as decorative ornaments in Chinese households, symbolizing health, longevity, and prosperity. I picked up an unusual pair of scissors at a thrift store. Each handle has extra finger rings and the blades are long and narrow. What were these made for? These are dual control training scissors. The extra finger rings let 2 people use the same pair at the same time. The learner uses the front rings while a teacher, parent, or therapist uses the rear rings to guide the motion and keep the blade steady. The long, narrow blades give a clear view of the cut line, and the all-metal build keeps the tool rigid so the helper can control opening and closing. They're used in classrooms and therapy settings to teach scissor skills, support children who are still developing hand strength and coordination, and help adults in rehabilitation relearn a proper cutting motion. The design is ambidextrous, so it works for both right and left-handed users, and the helper can gradually back off as the learner takes over. I keep seeing these around my city. They flash every time an ambulance goes by. Does anyone know what they are? What you saw is an optical traffic signal preemption detector. It monitors the intersection for a coded infrared strobe from authorized emergency vehicles. When it detects that signal, the controller overrides the normal cycle, turns conflicting directions red, and gives the emergency vehicle a green so it can pass safely. The small indicator on the unit flashes to confirm the request and show that preemption is active. I received a small ceramic cup with a matching cone-shaped piece that sits on top. The tip of the cone is unglazed. Does anyone know what it is? What you have is a 2-piece sake cup set in the Japanese studio pottery style. The small base is a spouted stand called a katakuchi, and the conical piece is the drinking cup that nests on top when it's not in use. Small sake cups are called ochoko, while slightly larger artisan cups are known as guinomi. They became widely used during Japan's Edo period, roughly the 17th through 19th centuries, alongside the growth of sake brewing and tavern culture. The pointed tip of the cone is intentionally left unglazed. Potters leave the foot bare so the piece won't fuse to the kiln shelf, and so the cup sits securely when it rests in the stand. I found this hammer-shaped tool with a wooden handle and an iron head. One side is flat and the other has a short row of teeth. It weighs about 1 to 2 pounds and has no markings. What was this used for? What you found is a scutch hammer used by bricklayers and masons. One face is flat for striking, and the toothed end is a holder for a replaceable scutch comb. To use it, press a comb of the right width, typically 1 inch or 1.5 inches, into the slot and work with short, light taps. It rakes old mortar from joints, trims the edge of a fired brick, and chases a shallow groove in plaster. Scutching tools became a mainstay of British and Irish building by the late 19th and early 20th centuries as harder bricks and cement mortars came into regular use. The advantage was simple serviceability. Instead of grinding an entire head, the tradesman swapped a small cutter and went straight back to work. I found this small hand tool with a bulb-shaped wooden handle. One side has a folding curved blade, and the other has a tapered metal spike. What is this used for? What you found is a cork borer sharpener, the lab tool that keeps the hollow tubes used to punch holes in cork or rubber stoppers cutting clean. The bulb handle gives a steady grip, the tapered steel mandrel sets the size and guides the tube, and the small folding blade does the sharpening. Slide the borer to the right diameter, rotate it lightly while drawing the blade along the bevel, and you'll bring the edge back to a crisp, round circle. The slot at the tip clears shavings and helps you hold the angle. I picked up this matching pair of small metal pieces at a consignment shop. Each one has an S-shaped hook on top and a little rectangular insert that looks like stone. What are these used for? This matching pair is agate bearings from a precision beam balance. The little stone is a polished agate block set into a metal carrier, and the S-shaped hook shows how each bearing hung inside the balance pillar as a replaceable end support. In an equal arm or analytical balance, the beam pivots on razor-sharp knife edges, and those edges sit on agate. This setup provides a low-friction surface, ensuring highly accurate and repeatable measurements. Balances built with agate bearings were the standard for high-grade instruments from the late 19th century into the mid-20th. British and German makers produced them for laboratories, pharmacies, and jewelers' benches, where small quantities had to be weighed with confidence. I found this metal item that clamps to a workbench. It's roughly 8 to 12 inches tall and looks like some kind of drill, except the head has 2 serrated blades instead of a bit. What is this used for? What you found is a bench-mounted, hand-cranked coconut scraper that clamps to the edge of a table for stability. Turn the wooden handle and the serrated flower-shaped head begins to spin. Hold a halved coconut in both hands and press the white flesh against the teeth. In a few turns, it shaves out fine flakes for curries, sambles, desserts, or for pressing into coconut milk. Household coconut graters have a long history across South and Southeast Asia. Early home versions were simple stools or benches with a fixed toothed blade at one end, and by the early 20th century, that form is recorded in Ceylon and in southern India. I found this among my grandmother's things. It has 2 clips and the center section rotates. Does anyone know what it is? What you found is a fringe twister. In your case, a double model that twists 2 strands at once. It's used to finish the loose fringe on scarves, shawls, blankets, rugs, and other woven pieces, so the ends become neat, balanced cords instead of unraveling threads. The tool works on the same principle as rope making. You twist separate bundles, then ply them together in the opposite direction to lock the cord. Twisted fringe has been part of textiles for centuries, but hand tools like this became common with the growth of home weaving and fiber arts kits in the later 20th century. I was remodeling my bathroom when I opened up a drywall wall and found a hand-drawn X marks the spot map. It led me to the attic, where at a marked spot under the insulation, I uncovered a small treasure chest. Inside was this item. Does anyone know what it is? What you found is a past master's jewel from a Masonic lodge, a presentation badge given to the outgoing master. In this case, it was presented to Edwin Collimore at the end of his term in 1868. The inscription AL5868 stands for Anno Lucis, Year of Light. In Masonic dating, you add 4,000 to the Gregorian year, so 5,868 equals 1868. Different lodges choose different gifts for a departing master. Some present jewels like this, some give aprons or gavels, and some give nothing at all. I found a contraption about 4 feet long with wooden rails and metal gearing. A hand crank turns every cog in sequence, and the only marking reads, "Patented August 20th, 1901. What was this used for? What you found is a wire fence machine, the same design patented on August 20th, 1901 by John Barber. The marking on your piece matches that date, and the layout, wooden rails with a train of sprocket wheels, linked by chain and driven by a hand crank, matches Barber's design. To use it, the frame is set across the fence line. Wires are threaded through openings in the hubs of the sprockets and secured to a tension post. Then the hand crank turns all the wheels together, twisting the strands evenly along the run. As United States farms expanded in the late 19th century, wire fencing became the practical way to control livestock and protect crops. After the 1870s, barbed wire spread across the plains, and specialized tools like this followed to speed construction and improve quality. I found this pyramid-shaped object at an old cell phone tower site. Inside the clear top, there seems to be a coil wrapped around a crystal. Does anyone know what this is used for? What you found is an orgonite pyramid, a handmade resin and metal sculpture inspired by Wilhelm Reich's mid-20th century idea of orgone energy. The dark body is cast resin mixed with metal particles, while the clear tip holds a small quartz point wrapped in a copper coil. Makers claim this metal and resin matrix compresses the crystal and transforms energy. People place these on desks or windowsills for meditation, use them as decor, or set them near electronics and cell towers with the claim that they clean or neutralize electromagnetic fields. I was cleaning out my grandmother's house and came across this unusual tool. Does anyone know what it is? What you found is a flour dusting wand. It's a handheld kitchen tool with a spring coil basket and a wire handle. You squeeze to open the coil, dip it into flour, release to trap a small amount, then squeeze again over dough or a pan to sprinkle a light, controlled dusting. This keeps dough from sticking while you roll or shape it. It can also be used for powdered sugar, cocoa, or fine spices. The style in your photos, a double cone coil mounted on a wire yoke, matches the old-fashioned type still sold today. Devices for sifting and dusting flour became popular in the mid-19th century. One early American patent for a hand sifter was issued to John Earnshaw in 1865. His design combined a scoop with a mesh sieve and internal paddles turned by a crank. I found this old metal tool in a box of utensils. It's about 6 inches long with a narrow, 2-pronged grabber on one end and a small flat paddle on the other. There aren't any markings on it. Does anyone know what this was used for? These are antique tweezers with a sterling silver handle from the early 1900s. The working end is the springy 2-prong tip, and the long, slim body gives a steady grip for small, precise picks, pulling a splinter or tidying a loose thread. Pieces like this were sold as part of vanity and manicure sets, where a silver handle dressed up everyday grooming tools. I spotted this massive cast iron machine outside a shop in St. Petersburg, Florida. It has a big flywheel, gears, and a 2-jaw mouth, and it's roughly 10 feet long. Any idea what this heavy piece of equipment was used for? What you're looking at is an alligator shear number 2 from the Canton Foundry and Machinery Company of Canton, Ohio. These powered shears were built to cut bar, rod, and plate stock. The large flywheel and gear train drive a crank that opens and closes the hinged upper jaw, hence the alligator nickname. The layout matches a United States patent issued December 29, 1914 to A.O. Slentz. That patent introduced a balancing system and a friction spring stop, so the machine would halt with the jaws open after a cut, rather than coasting and cycling again for momentum. My dad found this unusual device at a Goodwill store. It has a crank handle, a row of metal discs, and upright rods that look like guides. We can't figure out what it was made for. Does anyone know its purpose? What you've got is a hand-cranked wave machine used in physics classrooms. Turning the handle spins a shaft with a sequence of offset cams. Those cams lift the lower ends of the vertical rods in order, so the tops trace a smooth, traveling ripple. Crank faster to increase the frequency. The height of the motion shows the amplitude, and the spacing between crests is the wavelength. Teachers use this device to demonstrate traveling waves, reflection at a boundary, and standing waves. With two banks of rods, you can also compare wave behavior in two media, showing why part of a pulse transmits while part reflects when it meets a different section. I spotted these rust-colored metal carts on wheels next to the airport baggage carousel. Each one is loaded with heavy metal blocks and locked with a padlock. What are they used for? What you're seeing is a set of elevator test weight carts. Each cart weighs 100 pounds and carries 8 removable 50-pound blocks. Fully loaded, that's 500 pounds. Technicians roll the carts into the cab, stack the blocks to the target load, and run the elevator to confirm it lifts smoothly and stops where it should. While cleaning out our school's attic, I found a heavy wooden iron machine with a large rotating drum and a big gear wheel. The building dates to the 1890s and was a convent for a time. What you found is a champion hair picker, a mechanical device used to clean and fluff horsehair for mattress and upholstery filling. The operator fed clumps of hair into the front and turned the handwheel. Inside, a large drum studded with metal spikes rotated, combing the fibers apart, shaking out dust and restoring loft so the hair could be reused. The wood and iron frame with a geared drive is typical of shop equipment from the early 1900s. I picked up this wooden desktop gadget at a Pennsylvania thrift store. One end has a round wooden drum with a felt pad and a small fill hole. Across the base, there's a long slanted pad and a pivoting wooden bar that swings over it. On the underside, I could only make out part of the stamp, something like Company Worcester, Mass., along with a patent date from the 1880s. Any idea what this was used for? What you found is a tremulant, also called vox humana, from an old reed organ. Its purpose is to make the wind waver, producing a gentle tremolo that imitates a singer's vibrato, hence the name human voice. Inside the unit, a small spinning fan modulates the air. As it turns, the airflow comes in pulses, so the notes undulate with that characteristic shimmer. I found this small porcelain cup with floral decoration and a vertical slot on the side. There's no handle. The base is marked X1018. What was this little cup used for? What you found is a vintage ceramic postage stamp dispenser for stamps on a roll. Inside, a lid with a small rod holds the roll, and the strip feeds through the vertical slot on the side so you can pull out and tear off a single stamp. I came across this unusual wooden object. It looks about the size of a small club, with a handle and a serrated edge along one side. The top part seems to have a heavier, rounded end. Does anyone know what it is? What you found is an Iroquois war club, a traditional weapon used by the indigenous peoples of North America. These clubs are sometimes referred to as ball-headed clubs because of the heavy, rounded striking head carved at one end. They were crafted from durable hardwoods to endure repeated use in combat. During the 17th and 18th centuries, weapons like this were carried by warriors into battle. They were employed not only in conflicts between native nations, but also during confrontations with European colonists. Beyond their use in warfare, they also held symbolic value. Many were decorated with carvings or embellishments, and some were preserved as heirlooms or given as gifts of honor. While going through an old box of kitchenware from the 1990s, I found this solid metal piece with the letters HMO stamped on it, along with a couple of matching tools. What you found is a vintage nutcracker set. The larger hinged piece with the HMO mark is the nutcracker itself, made to press down and break open the hard shells of nuts such as walnuts or pecans. The V-shaped groove holds the shell steady so it can be cracked cleanly. The two smaller matching pieces are nut picks. After the shell has been broken, these picks are used to reach inside and carefully remove the nut meat without damaging it. While cleaning out my grandfather's attic in Switzerland, I came across this fragile glass piece. It's lightweight, has a round body with a small opening on top, and a thin, curved tube extending from the side. The glass object you found is a traditional neti pot, used for rinsing the nasal passages. Its design, a reservoir with a spout shaped to fit into the nostril, allowed it to be filled with a mild saline solution. By tilting the head and letting the liquid flow in one nostril and out the other, it helped clear away dust, pollen, or congestion. This cleansing practice, known as jala neti, originates from Indian yoga traditions, where it was considered part of daily hygiene and preparation for breathing exercises. Over time, the method spread beyond India, and by the early 20th century, glass or ceramic neti pots were also found in Europe and the United States, particularly among those interested in natural health and alternative medicine. I recently came across this old cast iron box with the words Came Jr. It measures about 6 inches long, 4 inches wide, and 3 inches tall, and the top can be removed. Does anyone know what this is? What you found is the base of a portable cast iron stove called the Game Jr., manufactured by the Taylor and Boggess Foundry Company of Cleveland, Ohio. The Game Jr. was originally designed as a sad iron heater, a small stove used to warm heavy flat irons for pressing clothes. Housewives and laundresses would place the irons directly on top, so they could heat evenly before ironing. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, stoves of this kind had become common household items, especially in homes without access to larger wood or coal-burning stoves. Thanks to its compact and portable design, the Game Jr. was also practical for light cooking and heating in rural households. In our Airbnb on the Maryland coast, I found this solid metal frame on wheels with a curved top section. It looks like it was built to support something heavy, but I can't figure out what. Does anyone know what it is? What you've discovered is the lower frame of a designer bar cabinet modeled after a ship's porthole. The rounded section on top was made to support the circular cabinet body, giving it a nautical look. These cabinets are considered high-end furniture pieces, and a complete set can sell for several $1,000s. I found these brass and glass pieces about 12 inches tall. Are they tiny oil lamps, or were they made for something else? Does anyone know what they are? What you found are spring-loaded candlesticks, not oil lamps. The small metal wick is a cap. Unscrew or lift it off. Drop a slender taper into the tube, then replace the cap. Inside, a spring with a follower pushes the candle upward as it burns, keeping the flame near the top. The glass chimney shields the flame from drafts and gives the piece its lamp-like look. I found 2 heavy mirror image cast iron pieces with ornate cutouts. Each one has 2 feet with screw holes and an arched profile. Any idea what these were made for? What you found are the cast iron side frames from a vintage school desk. They're shown upside down here. In the original setup, a wooden bench seat was mounted across the front of each pair, and the writing surface for the next pupil was positioned behind it. The screw holes in the feet were used to fasten the frames to the floor and to the wooden parts of the desk. I came across this small white pot with a red cross on the top. It has a short spout on one side, a handle on the other, and an open top. What you found is an invalid cup, a spouted feeding cup for bedridden patients. Caregivers poured in broth, milk, or tea, and the patient sipped through the short spout while reclining. The handle and wide opening made it easy to fill and clean, and the angled spout helped control the flow to reduce spills and choking. Cups like this were standard ward equipment before World War I and in some places into World War II. The Red Cross emblem suggests hospital or relief service use. In the last video, I asked you to identify this kitchen utensil with a black handle and a round metal head strung with wires. This item is an avocado slicer. You cut the avocado in half, remove the seed, and then use this tool to scoop out even slices. I really appreciate everyone who shared their guesses in the comments. It helps the video reach more people and allows the channel to grow. Now I want to invite you to identify another unusual object. This small wooden item looks hand-carved and has a sticker with unknown symbols on it. What do you think it was made for? Leave your guesses in the comments and I'll reveal the answer in the next video. Thanks so much for watching all the way to the end. I hope you found it interesting. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm and lets more people discover the channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.